Doc's going to start with the first question, but right now, I think we're going to start with Vasut, right?
Yes, sir.
We're going to start with you with 1 minute introductions, and we'll work our way to the right, and we'll work our way back. Good?
Absolutely. Well, I like to say howdy. Everybody says howdy back. That's what we do at A&M. My name's Cody Vasut. I'm a member of the Angleton City Council. Running to be your next state representative. Born and raised in Missouri County. I'm a 5th generation resident of Angleton, Texas. Married to my wonderful wife, Kate, who is here in the audience. We got a daughter, Sparrow. If you've seen my flyer, she's the cutest baby in this race. And I also have another baby on the way, so we're very excited about that. Excited to be here. Thank you guys so much for hosting this. It means the world. This may be one of the coolest things I've ever done, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to getting to know the other candidates tonight, and then to get to know me, and looking forward to it. Thank you so much for everything that you guys do to make Matagorda County redder and keep Texas red. God bless.
Good evening. My name is Brimage, and I'm running for the same position as Cody and the rest of these folks up here, District 25 State Rep. I was born and raised in Missouri County, born at the Bradsport Community Hospital in Freeport, Texas in 1971. Married to my wife, Sabrina, who's here tonight for 30 years this July, if we make it through this campaign. We have 2 beautiful twin babies, I'll say now. They're heading to College Station. Cody will be proud of that. Brendan and Brianna will be graduating from Bradsport High School this year. I started my career off in law enforcement and I have a heart for public service. I was most recently the mayor of the great city of Freeport. And you've certainly been reading the local newspapers and you know some of the things that our administration got done there as far as rooting out corruption in that. Previously, from that, I served on the Bradsport Independent School Board, and anyway, that's where we're at tonight, and I'm certainly happy to represent you as your next state representative. Thank you.
Hi everyone, good evening. My name is Rhonda Seth, and I'm going to switch gears a little bit here. I got into this race because I was deeply concerned that our liberties, our freedom, our values, and our tax dollars are being traded away behind closed doors. Austin isn't even pretending to listen to us anymore. I intend to go to Austin with your support, and I will fight against the lobbyists, the special interest groups, and the legislators who have their own pet projects. I'll be there to fight for Second Amendment rights, to fight for the lives of the unborn, to reform, if not eliminate, property taxes. And my biggest goal is to be there to bring back the voice of we the people to our government at a state and local level. Thank you, and thank you guys for hosting tonight.
Hi, I'm Robin Garret, and I am running in the Republican primary to be the next House Representative of District 25. For those of you that do not know me, I have been the Republican representative on the ballot 5 times in Missouri County and have served nearly 20 years as the Missouri County Tax Assessor Collector. My job as Tax Assessor Collector is to implement the laws that lawmakers make. I haven't had the authority to make the laws. I can advocate for you, the taxpayer, and try to impact, which I have done. But ultimately, I cannot write the legislation and vote on the bill. I am now asking HB 25 voters to elect me to be the lawmaker to go and represent your best interest in the legislative process, to bring the full weight of my expertise to bear more to make these laws more effective for taxpayers. I am the only candidate in this race qualified to represent you and your interest, and I will have the ability to have an immediate impact. Thank you.
My name is Mitch Thames. I'm the president and CEO of the Bay City Chamber of Commerce and Agriculture. I want to thank the Matagorda County Republican Party for hosting this forum, and I want to thank each and every one of you for being here to listen to our candidates. For over 15 years, I've been working on legislative issues for you. I have worked closely with many of our former state office holders like Linda Dawson, Mike O'Day, Randy Weber, now Congressman Weber, and of course Speaker Bonnen. Our issues are ongoing. From Texas windstorm rates to water rights for the Brazos and Colorado rivers, education, rural transportation, one of the biggest issues, rural health care, I want to be your voice in Austin. My wife Carolyn and I have been married for 35 years, and today's her birthday. Happy birthday, Mom.
Happy birthday.
We have 3 kids, and we have 6 delightful grandkids. I'm asking for your vote and your support, District House 25. Thank you.
Well, good evening, gentlemen. We're going to start over here with Mr. Thames. And one of the problems that we have here in Texas, there's this thing called the Second Amendment. And for some reason, for over 100 years, we have failed to legalize the Second Amendment in Texas. And so the question to you, sir, and then to each of you, is what would you do to legalize the Second Amendment in Texas?
Well, as far as I know, the Second Amendment is legal in Texas. It's certainly a part of the U.S. Constitution. My goal will be to make sure that we don't lose any ground on that we take care of Texans, and we allow Texans to have the arms. We certainly have a few myself, and the friends and neighbors certainly have those. So I guess really what you're asking is, am I in favor of registering guns? And I'm not. I don't know, I'll be honest right up front, I don't know that constitutional carry is something that I can go that far or that fast. I believe it's just very simply that to have a driver's license, you have to prove in some minimum way that you know how to use a vehicle. I support being able to have a concealed carry, and I support being able to have a little bit of a test. I think 4-hour test with some practice where you can demonstrate it is important.
Just for the record, we're trying to keep the booth over here.
We can hear better, thank you.
Robin, you're up.
All right, well, as Mitch stated, the Second Amendment is the law of the land and our Constitution, but I'm glad to have a question on this. I believe strongly and unequivocally in our right to self-defense. Folks have asked about my position in Brazoria and Matagorda counties on becoming sanctuary counties. If the respective commissioners' court pass those resolutions, I would support them. I support a citizen's right to carry in a manner that they choose, and I also support law-abiding citizens who comply with state and federal regulations, not having to pay for a license. Thank you.
Rhonda.
So the truth of the matter is that our Second Amendment right is not legalized, and that's why there are so many restrictions and laws. It is my intention to go and to, on day one, walk in the door with a legislative bill to support constitutional carry. Every state that borders Texas already has some version of constitutional carry, and yet Texas doesn't. And the truth of the matter is that we have the right to keep and bear arms uninfringed. And we've allowed the federal government, we've allowed the state government to take that control, again, from we the people. I support constitutional carry, and I'll walk in with day one with legislation.
This is real simple and real easy to me. I support the Second Amendment 100%. I'm an avid hunter. I'm a 30-year law enforcement officer. I raised my children to handle guns responsibly, and I believe in constitutional carry. I believe that we have the right, the Second Amendment, our Constitution, our forefathers have told us, that have set forth for us, that we have the right to keep and bear arms. I don't believe in fees to have a license to carry, and I think it's time that one of us step up when we get to Austin and make sure that Texans have that right. Thank you.
Cody.
It's not a Second Amendment right, it's a God-given right. It exists even if the Second Amendment wasn't there. You have the God-given inherent right to keep and bear arms. All the Second Amendment does is prohibit the government from infringing on it. So is the Second Amendment legalized in Texas? No, because we infringe on it currently right now. Constitutional carry allows any law-abiding citizen in this state to keep and bear arms, which is what the Second Amendment exists to protect. Of course I support constitutional carry because I believe in the God-given right to keep and bear arms. I oppose red flag laws where the liberals would come and strip away our guns without due process. I oppose gun confiscation. I oppose assault weapon bans. You want somebody that's pro the God-given right for your right to keep and bear arms? That's me. Look, too often we get concerned about whether somebody's going to carry a gun that ought not to. Constitutional carry only applies to law-abiding citizens. It's the law in Oklahoma. Is anybody afraid of going to Tulsa right now?
I have a follow-up, thank you. And once again, we're going to go back to Mitch on this one. Considering it's already against the law to kill people, and it's already against the law to steal their stuff, of what value is a gun law?
Well, I think it's to keep the rest of us safe. It's to make sure that those individuals that might have problems aren't able to get guns. I've talked to the sheriff quite a bit, and we've got some mental health issues there, and I just don't want them being able to take care of that. We do have laws. We have lots of laws. But I think we need to be very mindful of those laws, quit adding laws, and live within the means of what we have right now. Protecting citizens is very important. You saw that in the recent church shooting, where we had a security officer there. They had a security committee there ready to take care of the situation.
To be fair, he was a deacon in the church. He was not professional security per se.
No, and I apologize. I know that it was not. But just in my own church, we have a safety committee, and I think he was on that as well.
Robin,
Yes, sir.
considering that it's already against the law to kill people and it's already against the law to steal their stuff, of what value is a gun law?
I believe I mentioned that a law-abiding citizen has the right to carry in any manner that they choose without a license. I believe that's a pretty good definition of constitutional carry.
Rhonda?
So, the value of a gun law is to keep law-abiding citizens from exercising their God-given Second Amendment right. So we touched on mental health here, and I'm actually an ER nurse, so mental health is, I see the results of a lot of that. And instead of taking guns away and restricting guns from law-abiding citizens, Texas is in the bottom of any kind of mental health funding in our country. And that is in fact where our focus should be, is we have very few resources here in Missouri or Matagorda County. And I see it. I take care of a patient for 12 hours, we have nowhere to send them. I go home for 12 hours, I come back for 12 hours. I still have that same patient. So I don't have a lot of value in gun laws because I'm a law-abiding citizen, but I do think that we should absolutely focus on the issue of mental health here in our district.
To you, Troy?
Values in gun laws, as a 30-year Texas peace officer, the criminals are the ones with the guns, and the law-abiding citizens are the ones that don't have them because the law says they can't. And so why would a peace officer want, I want law-abiding citizens to have a gun in order if they have to back me up when I'm out there, not criminals. So that's why I don't believe it.
Cody, you more or less answered this, but I'll give you a second to elucidate.
They don't work. All that they do is deprive law-abiding citizens of their right to keep and bear arms. When we're talking about gun control, obviously everybody in this room, rational person, you can't use a gun to commit a crime, okay? But it's already illegal to kill somebody. Guess what? It's illegal to attempt to kill somebody. So if you go to attempt to kill somebody with a shotgun, the law-abiding officers like Troy are free to take that away. And that's not gun confiscation. We understand that that's different. But gun control laws, all they do is create more victims. That's what they are sadly doing. And we have got to get this idea across to our friends on the left that you cannot require criminals to obey the law because they're criminals. God bless America.
All right, okay, so earlier, Damon made a comment and he pointed at Greene and said, hey, I agree with 99% of what it is. The problem is the 1%. That's what we argue about. So as representative of this district, you've got a lot of variations of opinions. So what are the metrics, or what are the intangibles that you're going to die on? What hills will you die on? What hills will you consider you have movement on in legislature? We'll start with Cody.
Sorry, man. Well, the number one issue for me is ending abortion. I'm not in favor of limiting abortion, making it safe, legal, or rare. I'm in favor of ending it. Why do we sit here and curtail on this issue? This is a black and white issue. Every human life has immeasurable worth from the moment of conception. That's what Scripture teaches. That's what God teaches. It's the scientific fact. Every day that we do not move to end abortion is another day when hundreds of kids die in this country. So, where's a hill I'm willing to die on? Ending abortion. Where's some areas where I'm willing to give and take? Let's talk about the budget, particular programs. We negotiate those things. But when it comes to ending abortion, when it comes to protecting our God-given rights, whatever those rights may be, Second Amendment, First Amendment, Fourth Amendment, whatever, those are hills I'm willing to die on because principles matter.
Sure.
Since Cody took abortion, I'll move to schools. I think that schools are important, especially in these times. As our dynamics grow, as District 25, the industry in Matagorda and Missouri County grows, we have got to produce great youth in order to fill these positions. And I think it's important that we focus on school reform, that we focus on school finance, and that we don't put the money in the hands of the bureaucrat, that we put the money in the classrooms, that we take care of our teachers to get the job done in public schools, because that's what we have an obligation to do.
So I found it very interesting in this last session that we spent all this time coming up with the legislative priorities for the Republican Party. We had a Republican House, a Republican Senate, we had a Republican governor. Does anybody know how many of our priorities got passed? Zero. Zero. And it is my intention to go to Austin to fight for all of those things, because these are all values that are important to our district. Yes, we need to fight for constitutional hearing. Yes, we need to end abortion. Yes, we need a better budget. These are all very important things, and I know they're important to the people in the district because they've told me. And so I think that all of these things need our attention, and they need some accountability, and that comes from us, the voters.
I'm going to go under, everyone that goes to Austin goes with what they know. What I know is my 35 years working every day with the Texas Property Tax Code. My major focus, and where I think I can make the best difference, is working for property tax relief for citizens of our state, in our district, in our cities, in our counties, where we live. I will be involved in the implementation of SB2 and HB3 throughout this tax year with the 54 entities that I serve. I will know, coming into the 87th legislation, what worked, what didn't work, what needs to be fixed, what we can do better for transparency, for property tax relief, for increasing the state share of school funding, lowering the local portion of school funding, because I will have lived it and breathed it, and I can come and work and know what I am addressing and talking about on your behalf to make the system better.
My cross is you, the Texas families. We're under attack. Our young people that are starting out trying to live along the Gulf Coast, we're under attack. We're under attack with windstorm, insurance rates. They just had it on their agenda in December to go up another 10%, which is 5% they went up the year before. We have got to take care of you. We've got to take care of our Texas families. We've got to take care of those individuals on a fixed income, or we're going to force them out of our community. Too many times, I see a lot of people working here in Matagorda County in southern Missouri and living north in Fort Bend County or in Harris County. The number one thing when I go there and everything I decide is going to be Texas families. Insurance, we've got a property evaluations that are going up 3.5% every year. 3.5%. Okay, that wasn't too bad last year and it wasn't too bad this year, but what about 10 years from now? All right.
Okay, we're going to start with you, Troy. In considering the importance of committees in the House, especially the committee chairman, do you believe that the Republican Speaker of the House should only appoint Republicans to chair the committees, yes or no? And explain why.
Yes, because I believe that we need to keep Texas red, and I believe that's why we're all up here fighting today. I believe that's why we fight every day. And if we give up, we're gonna lose it. They're fighting hard. As we're sitting here tonight, they're planning to take over. I assure you of that. And that's why it's hard, that's why it's so important that we're doing what we're doing on the stage tonight. It's not fighting amongst each other, but uniting and getting our ideas across to the people. And the people, it's gonna take all of us in this room, not just us on this stage, to keep Texas red, or we will lose. So my absolute answer is yes.
I guarantee you that if our next Speaker of the House is a Democrat, there won't be any Republicans appointed to committees. And I think we saw in this last session where we heard so much rhetoric about the big three, how the House and the Senate and the governor worked together. And it was so important to go along and get along that there was no checks and balances, which is how our bicameral government is set up in the first place. I don't want all my branches getting along. I want there to be questions, and I want there to be checks and balances. And so, should a Republican Speaker of the House appoint Democrats to chair committees like Homeland Security, Pancho Navarez? Absolutely not.
I agree. If Republican leadership appoints Democrats as chairs, then we do not have Republican leadership. You do have to have consensus when you pass legislation, but the prevailing consensus should be that of the will of the people, and if that's a Republican majority, that's the will that should prevail.
Yes, sir, I can support that. Unfortunately, the way we pick a speaker at the House is sometimes they have to make promises, and I don't necessarily like that. And there will also be the opportunity that if a Democrat has the seniority, we'll have to deal with that. But I do support the fact that a Republican speaker, especially appoint Republicans to the committees. And I think that's extremely important, especially with what we did last year, having a Speaker Pro Tem that is actually a Democrat and looking at what's going on in the House right now. And so, yes, I do believe that. I also understand and want the people to understand that some of the appointments are going to be by seniority, and so a certain amount of that. But yes, the Speaker will have a large role in playing in the future, and I look forward to being with that person.
Cody?
Yes, now let me spend 59 seconds talking about what the real bigger issue is. Our chairmen are too powerful in the House. They have total control over their agendas. Let's say that whoever gets elected can file a bill. The chairman doesn't like that bill, he can tag that bill, not hold a public hearing on it. Let's say there is a hearing, it gets through there, the chairman of calendars can tag that bill and not put it on the agenda. We need not only Republican chairmen, but Republican priority-centric rules. The rules need to be changed to where we can move legislation, where whoever gets elected has the right as an individual in the House to be able to propose legislation and force votes and hearings on legislation. That's how you get the Republican priorities passed. You have to make sure that you get hearings on them and votes, because I guarantee you with most of these things, a lot of these guys don't want to take record votes, and that's a crying shame. We shouldn't be afraid to go on record with what we believe. We shouldn't be afraid to advance the Republican agenda.
Thank you.
I gotta say this is really difficult because when I'm doing this in my studio, I have a bell and a buzzer. but I'm doing the best I can. I appreciate all of you guys, because it's no small thing to put your hat in the ring like you guys have all done. And so I salute all of you for being willing to be up there on the stage tonight. This next question goes to Rhonda, and the question is simply this. Back in the days of feudalism, when we had kings and dukes and duchesses, we came up with this great idea of property taxes. Later on, the Communist Party adopted the idea that the state owns everything and that you own nothing. Here in Texas, you will never own your house because the state owns everything. Will you, as a legislator in the Pink Palace in Austin, eliminate the property tax and replace it with a sales tax?
So eliminating property taxes is a priority for me. And there's those of people out there that will say, oh, you can't do that. That's the way it's always been done. And yet, my 60-plus-year-old dad, who's paid off his mortgage, done what he's supposed to do, is still renting his property from the government. And there are more fair, less arbitrary ways to raise the revenue streams that we need to function as a state. And I actually have already been doing the research with a group about how to go about implementing, eliminating property tax.
Robin.
Okay. The legislative priority last session was to work on replacing property tax reform, changing school district maintenance and operation. There was a priority on that. And HB 3 did pass, and there's changes. But when you look at replacing the property tax in whole, you have to look at something that is sustainable to replace it. What I would like to do is take my knowledge and work with the language that is being proposed and see how we can find another source of income at the state level that will lower property taxation for the school districts and keep the state funding at a higher level. Doing away with property taxes, I'm all for having a conversation, but you have to have something sustainable to replace it.
Mitch.
You know, I'm not ready to throw the bomb into the crowd that says totally eliminate it. But how long have we been under this very same process a very long time? And so looking at property tax values, Vince, our tax appraiser here in the county says, Mitch, my hands are tied when it comes to appraising values. On average, in the state of Texas, our values go up 3.5%. I hear horror stories of it going up 10% in places like Fort Bend County. I've heard people that live along the Gulf Coast where it's gone up a tremendous amount of money. We have got to be smart about this. I'm not ready to throw a bomb and say sales tax. I don't know what that would look like. What if we wake up one day and we have 22 cents on the dollar sales tax? I don't know what that does to our young people and our elderly. I don't know what it'd do to me, to be absolutely honest with you. I'm willing to have the discussions. I'm willing to talk about it, and I'm ready to make major changes in the way that our appraisals are done.
Cody.
Nobody can make a guarantee on this stage that they're going to eliminate property taxes for one vote out of 150. I'm never going to make a guarantee like that, but I'll tell you what I will do. Is I have a goal of replacing our property tax system with a consumption tax system as long as it is fair and not unduly burdensome to the poor, and most importantly of all, revenue neutral. It has to be, otherwise you're raising the overall tax burden. Let me tell you some things that you can do. Number one, the Republican Party, after this last legislative session, put together an interim charge to study replacing school district M&O property taxes with a sales tax. I think that is something that is realistically achievable. You can do that. You don't have to raise the sales tax to 15% like some of the naysayers argue. There's a broader amount of consumption taxes that you can adjust, cigarettes, alcohol, etc., and broaden the base of the sales tax in order to accomplish that. Overall, why do we like consumption taxes better than property taxes? Because we don't have to rent our homes from the government, and we can choose whether or not we pay them. I think it's a far superior system of taxation.
I am with Cody on the consumption tax, and I'm with a lot of the candidates up here on not jumping to conclusions on what we do about this. And I know the people in this audience want something done. I want something done. I've done a lot of research on my candidates, and I know that I probably pay more property taxes than most up here. And it's a huge burden on me and my family every year. And we're punished for being business people. We're punished for being in the real estate business. And it hurts. And I know it hurts. And so I certainly want to do something about it, but I want to study it and I want to have a plan before we jump into it. Sales tax, I've looked at it. I kind of like it. I almost want to pay $10 for a gallon of milk if I can afford that, versus not owning my property. Because property, again, Cody alluded to it earlier, is a God-given right. It's your property, and you should not have to rent it from the government. So we do have to come up with a plan before we just jump into it and make a sudden change. So I would work hard to get that done.
I do want to remind you about the trap door under each one of you if you exceed your time. My follow-up question is very simple, yes or no. Do you support the government continuing to own your land? And Rhonda gets that question.
No.
Robin?
No.
On three, everybody.
1, 2, 3.
No. Thank you. Mr. Figueroa?
Yeah, you should be worried about that trap door, because he's a mean man here. Well, listen, I've been telling myself all day long I want to go on a diet. Just because I want to go on a diet doesn't mean I lose weight. So you're telling me you want to take away property taxes. What do you want to cut spending? Where would you cut spending in order to compensate for this reduction in revenue? Because the feast will continue to eat. So I think we're starting with you, Mitch. Or is it Robin? I apologize.
Okay, all right, well, I want to jump back just a minute because I want to talk about the property tax situation and what happened this session, and it'll pretty much comes to that. The M&O was compressed for school districts in 19, and it's going to be compressed again in 2020. What happens is the next question. And we need to continue to examine and lower the local effort contribution and increase the state's portion of taxes, which I said, of school funding. But the crux of the matter is a great example exactly why I should be your state representative. I know what this priority language is saying. I know where we can get to the content. I want to be the forefront to make it effective for you. So in looking at how we can increase the state share and where we can also cut is a major priority. And it has to do with finding that additional source of revenue to make up the difference.
Robin, I'm going to ask you just a follow-up. What would you cut? I'm going to give you 20 seconds. What spending cuts would you see?
You do not know till you see that budget.
Okay. Mitch?
So that's a great question, and I think we go into every session wanting to know exactly what to cut. I think that we need to be very, very smart about when I say the entitlements. We're spending a tremendous amount of money in healthcare. When you say cut, that's a bad connotation, but I want to look at ways to reduce spending in healthcare, and because I'm telling you that's a great part of our budget. The other one would be criminal justice as well. What are best practices to reduce the amount of money that we have to spend on that? When you add up the mandated budget, it will leave a legislature with less than 30% to worry about what to cut, what not to cut, just because of the policies. We're going to have to back up. We're going to have to change policies. We're going to have to utilize that. And I'd like to throw a caveat in that and talk about more revenue. I think we lose money right now because we don't allow our comptroller to invest the billions and billions and billions of dollars in the rainy day fund. And I'm not saying all of it, but our teacher retirement is invested. Why can't we take some of that money that's sitting there? Glenn Hager says you might as well dig a hole.
Time, Mitch.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, sorry about that. I didn't want you to get the trap door, man. I'm trying to keep you on the stage.
I actually liked where Mitch was going. I agree on that front. We need to be better investing our rainy day fund in order to make it revenue.
Yes.
But specifically, your question was cuts. Enterprise fund, cut. Film industry claim, cut. There's certain things that we do, corporate welfare programs, that we can cut right off the bat. Criminal justice reform, if you can reform it in such a way that we have got to keep people out of the pathline to prisons. You've got to punish violent offenders, but if you can keep them out of prisons, we spend about, what, $22,000 a head a year to keep people in jail. If we had them as productive members of society, that would be an increase of tax revenue and a decrease in spending. I don't have a magic wand for that, but there are strategies that you can pursue. But I do want to make this very important point. When we talk about reforming property taxes, replacing them with a sales tax, or with what we did with SB2, where we capped that appraisal, the revenue rate at 3.5%, that doesn't deprive revenue from local governments. That just caps increases. So as far as where are we going to get money to make up the difference at the local level, I don't think there is a gut there. At the state level, I've given you my answer as best I can.
Sure.
I think criminal justice reform, I think putting people in prison for minor crimes, and like Cody said, $25,000 a year. I couldn't tell you how many times my phone rang when the punishment came down on the city manager of the city of Freeport today. Him sitting in jail and us paying $25,000 a year doesn't get back the hundreds of thousands of dollars that was taken from the city of Freeport. We've got to figure that out. The other thing is illegal immigration. We have got to figure out border security, and we have got to keep paying for people that are not paying taxes. I think that's two major things that if we work on, we can save tons of money and put it to use where it needs to be put to use.
Okay. Rhonda?
So this past session, we passed a $252 billion budget, the single largest budget in Texas history. And our governor has the ability to do line item veto. Not one single thing was vetoed out of a $252 billion budget. I don't run my household budget like that, do you? I have to say no, and I have to prioritize. And one of the things as a healthcare professional that I see, we spend a lot of money on illegal immigrants. They come, they know when you come to the emergency room, it's all free. It's all free. You need surgery, it's free. So I think securing our borders is going to be very important, and I think stemming the tide right there and taking care of our citizens before we take care of illegal immigrants, I think is going to be the first step to reducing that budget.
So, the district has gone through a lot. What do you, especially the fragmentation of our party, what do you plan on doing in order to help heal and reestablish itself? I think Mitch,
Yeah, I think we need to listen. I think we need to communicate. I think we need to talk. I think we need to get back to the basics. I think getting in working the streets and working in the communities, I have found that the main thing we need to do is to bring unity back. We need to come together. We need to figure out what our priorities are. I think they're Texas families. We're going to rally under that. But I think it's communications, and I think it's more importantly, I think it's listening. I think that we just went through a session where the rural Texas was not listened to. I don't feel like I was listened to, and I talked to legislators a lot during the session. I'm such a geek. I play the session on the internet. I play the session behind me just so I can keep up with what's going on. I think it's community, I think it's unity, and I think it's communication.
So a few things. I mean, first off, I won't call the cops on you if you come to bring a flyer to my door. I mean, that'll be a start. But the main thing is that you have to restore trust and listen to the grassroots. You ignore them, you call them deplorables, you call them cavemen. That is rude and that is not acceptable. But we now have an opportunity here for a new change, a new direction for how our representative is going to represent us in Austin. I think, like Mitch said, it's a large part of communication, it's a large part of openness, but I also think one of the main things, term limits. You gotta make sure that people go to Austin for a brief period of time, represent your interests, and then come home. The longer that they serve there, the more you see them get attached to special interest groups, get attached to PACs, and lose sight of why they ran to begin with. Heaven forbid, if I serve in office that long, I cannot do it. I cannot do it. I believe in term limits. I will vote for term limits, and I will self-term limit myself. It's critical.
Quick question, Cody. Since you brought this up, what would your term limit be?
My term limit would be absolutely no more than 12, but I'll tell you, between my wife and I, it's going to be 8 for me. I don't know if I can impose 8 on everybody.
Wait,
just put 8
just put 8. So it's
8 for me.
Okay.
But I don't know if I would impose 8 on everybody else. Make sense?
Yes, sir. Sure.
Common sense and negotiations. I think that's what it's going to take when we get to Austin. I think everyone in Austin is going to be looking at us to see who we are, to see our track record, to see that we're going to be listeners, to see that we're going to be able and have the ability, the maturity to work with those who are there. Not necessarily agree with what they want, but we can't go up there with a fight, ready to fight everybody. We've got to figure out a way to negotiate with these people and get what District 25 needs. And I think I have the ability to do that. I think I've shown that with my track record. Most of you maybe don't know, but some of you in here I'm looking at know what I went into as a mayor of Freeport. It was a bad situation. They wanted to hang me in the streets when I ran the first time, and now they're all in my campaign. And that's why I say that I have the ability to go up there and build relationships and work with the folks to get the message from District 25 and get things done in Austin.
So I think one very important thing that Austin has forgotten is who their boss is. I mean, the bosses are sitting in this room, it's the voters. And I think we've seen, particularly in this last session, that through intimidation, through bullying, through backroom door deals, that what we don't want isn't the priority anymore. And I think that it's going to be up to us, to the voters, to bring their attention back to that. And that means that we have to ask questions, we have to stay engaged, and we have to ask for the accountability. And if they're not accountable, if I'm not accountable, get out. And so I think that's the biggest thing, is that we, the voters, have got to pay attention and ask the hard questions, and absolutely some term limits.
Thank you.
I am a servant. I am not a politician. I do not have any political rhetoric, and I cannot promise you anything other than a servant with knowledge and experience who will do nothing but work in the best interest of this district. I have been working legislation for over 20 years. I have relationships. I have experience walking in the door. But I also have experience in the property tax code. But no legislator is an expert on any subject except the one that came in with. What I will do is go to the citizens of this district that are the experts in those areas that I need assistance and advice, and I will formulate opinions and votes based on the advice I get from the citizens of this district. And I will work hard to make that happen.
The population in Texas is growing like crazy. We have about 33 million legal residents in Texas, and we have about 11 million illegal residents in Texas. So I want to know what would be the best taxation scheme to take advantage of that fact. And we're going to start with, I think, Cody is up next. Yes.
Everybody consumes, Doc, so consumption tax, I think, is a critical tax in that sense. But also in the sense everybody does pay property tax in some way. You're either paying it directly to the taxman yourself or paying it through your landlord when you pay rent. A lot of people don't realize that, but your rent has taxes built into it. So what's the best system? I think it goes back to what we talked about earlier. Consumption, in my opinion, is the best form of taxation. Nothing's the best, but as close as we can get, because you can choose to pay it or not. And guess what? In the consumption tax system in Texas, medicine clothing, 1 day a year, shelter, and doctor's visits, personal services, they're all exempt from sales tax. So you can live your life without paying tax under a consumption tax system. And I think it's fair. I think it would apply to all 40 million that are here, and those that are here illegally. That's a federal issue, but we need to end illegal immigration. It goes without saying. But that's what I think.
Troy?
I'm gonna be real short on this because I agree with Cody on this. A consumption tax would be the answer to the 11 million people that are not paying taxes now. And we talked about it earlier. Those 11 million people are here. We've got to figure out a way to secure our borders to stop that from being 22 million in a few years. And if we don't do that, we're going to be in trouble. So again, consumption tax and border security is my answer to that.
Rhonda?
All right, the first thing I would say we do is, there's 11 million people here who have already broken our laws. Send them back. That's first. And then I think a consumption tax to where it's not as arbitrary as property taxes is going to be a consumption tax is going to be the answer there. And that way it is more fair, it's more equitable, and you have some control, unlike property taxes, about what you are paying. But the first thing is if you broke our law, you have to go home.
Robin?
I agree with Ron, it is an immigration issue. If you're here illegally, you should go home. As far as a consumption tax, you need to look, because in a booming economy that we have right now, sales taxes are high. Let's go back to 2008. Let's go back to the early 80s. When it happens, and it will happen because it has happened historically, the economy will slow down, consumption slows down, and you have to have a way to replace that money that you have grown used to having because it's no longer there. You have to be very careful to strike a balance in removing something and adding something that you don't lose when things are not going great as they are right now. So it would be a very delicate procedure to be able to come up with that balance so you don't lose in the process as well.
And that's a good point. That's a good point, and that is, we've talked about the fact that you get a choice with a consumption tax, and what if you in this room chose not to consume? What are we going to do for revenue there? As worried as I am about the 11 million illegal aliens, I'm a little concerned, and I say it jokingly a little bit, but I'm also concerned about the individuals coming here from other states like California and voting the way that they did back home and ruined it for California, and now coming here and wanting to vote the very same way and expect a different outcome. That concerns me as well. I'm really worried. I'm really worried about the consumption tax, but I do want to I expect the federal government to take care of the illegal situation. I think they're an integral part of our community. I think that we need to be smart on legal immigration, and that's where I would like to spend a lot of time. But when we agree to the border, I'll bill the U.S. government for what we spend in Texas.
This next question is also immigration related, and it's going to go to Troy first. The number of Muslims in Texas has more than doubled in the last 10 years. So my question to you is, looking around the world, in every nation, every state, we have the news, we have history. Why will Islam in Texas be better than it is in any other place in the world?
Well, because the Texas economy is booming. and they're coming here and running the businesses. And is that the question? Why are they choosing Texas?
Yeah, we need some question clarification.
The question is, how does Islam work out better in Texas than it does in any other nation or state in the world?
Because I think because of our economy and our system is better than anywhere else in the world, and that's why it works better for them.
Well, the question that I'm specifically asking is, one of the requirements of Islam is jihad. It's not an option, it's a requirement. And we see that fulfilled in every country in the world. And so you're telling me that you think because we have a good economy, then we'll get rid of the jihad option in Islam?
No, I think I'll pass on that question.
Rhonda?
I don't pass on the hard questions. So here's what I'm going to say to that. I do believe that Texas values and some of the aspects of the Muslim religion are diametrically opposed. I do believe when any immigrant, just as our families did as immigrants, come to our country, you assimilate. You assimilate to our values, you assimilate, and it doesn't mean you can't have pride and, have some of your traditional values, but you come to this country for a reason. And I think that we're the best in the world. I think Texas is definitely the best in the United States. And I like the values we have, and I personally want to keep it that way.
My follow-up to that, since you mentioned assimilation, in what countries of the world have the Muslims assimilated to the culture that they're in?
None.
Thank you. Robin, your question.
Last time I looked, this was the United States of America, where people have fought and died for freedom of religion. And I do believe peaceful religion, peaceful practice of your religion, being a Muslim doesn't make you bad. And this is the United States of America, and I believe in freedom of religion.
Mitch?
So it's a great question, and it's a religious question, and everybody gets uncomfortable when you start bringing up religion and politics. But I will tell you that what we're talking about is law-abiding citizens that are here and working to better their families. And whatever religion they call, as long as they're law-abiding, solid citizens, and then they're taking care of their families, that's exactly what I think is important. I think our Constitution speaks well to that, whether we agree or not. Whether we agree with some of their traditions or some of their religious teachings. I know that in my life, there's been some religious teachings that I've agreed with and didn't agree with. It didn't make me any less Christian. So I would say the key is law-abiding, paying attention to society, being a part of society, and taking care of their families.
And you, Cody?
If you do not know Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, how can you possibly say there's any difference in you and a Muslim? Too often we put people in groups and categories, and we think about the other. But what we need to be thinking about is our own soul. Any cultural system that's contrary to Judeo-Christian values can have issues with it, whether it's Muslim, whether it's even just some sin in your life as a Christian. Nobody's better than anybody else. Just like Robin said, this is America, and we believe in freedom of religion. And as a Baptist, I believe in freedom of religion. But let me tell you this. Ultimately, the solution to men's souls is the gospel of Jesus Christ. Not anybody on this stage, but Him alone. That is the true syrup for what ails your soul. And we don't need to be thinking about us versus them. We need to be sharing the gospel with everybody. That is what it is really about.
I think we're going to start with Rhonda. I think that's right. Okay. So $4.2 billion was just appropriated for flood relief in rural areas, right? And it's going to be offered to the General Land Office. Well, how do you see the use of some of those funds for our district? How would you appropriate them?
So I think that one of the ways to encourage industry and growth in our district, particularly here in Matagorda County, is to build better housing, to have better rated schools, and that's what attracts the businesses to help our communities grow. So I certainly think that some of the money should be appropriated in that direction.
Do you feel anything about the flood relief issue when a hurricane or a major storm hits?
Well, I mean, if you go back to the rainy day fund, I know we've got how many billions of dollars in the rainy day fund. Why do we have a rainy day fund? Because we've already been overtaxed, and the government thinks, hey, let me keep this because I know better than you what to do with your money. So I do take some exception to that. Social Security, you can lean into that. Social Security, I believe, is a kind of theft. So, does that answer your question? Okay.
So, 4.2 billion was just appropriated for rural services of the state, appropriated to the general land office. How would you appropriate those funds? What would you use them for? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay, we have to look where the water comes from. It comes from both ways. It comes from hurricane, and it comes from the rivers. We need to look at what are the best avenues for getting protection from both sides. I know that money being appropriated to general land office is probably going to be appropriated using state agency rule. And would be part of paying attention to how those rules are being written, talk to the citizens of the district, those that are on the water, those that are on the river, and see what actually the needs are to prevent. You have to really look at the watershed and the geography and too much to look at to be specific without being able to talk to the residents of the district and see what is the best course of action to mitigate those funds here.
Mitch?
Thank you. I'll tell you right now, I've got a commissioner right back there that knows what to do with $4.2 billion because our roads went underwater. The answer is infrastructure. We had sewer lines, we had sewer systems go out. We need to build those up. We didn't have generators to keep the water, the rural water and the rural sewers working. We've got people that had some serious loss of business. In Matagorda County, we were evacuated for 13 days. Southern Missouri County evacuated. I know because I was sitting in the Emergency Operations Center when the sheriff and the judge called, and dude, I think you were on the call, and they said, hey, we're sending our people through Matagorda County. And Judge McDonald said, no, you're not. And they said, you misunderstood. We're not asking, we're telling you we're sending people through. So there's a lot of ways. It's people. We've still got people that don't have the proper repairs to their homes when their homes went underwater. They're living there with their sheetrock halfway up the wall.
Thank you. Cody?
Well, I leave that, and by and large, to the experts in the room about flood mitigation. And whether that's with GLO, whether that's with our local drainage districts, I'm not an engineer, I defer to experts. But I'll tell you a few things. One, reservoirs, obviously, when it comes to flood mitigation, you have wet and dry detention. Troy and I dealt with that in Freeport and Angleton. We deal with that a lot. Improving that infrastructure, because one of the main reasons that you have flooding in these lower areas, particularly like, let's say Ridgewood, is you've got so much concrete going in upstream, and they don't put in the adequate level of detention that sends the sheet flow down to you, into your home. We have to address that. So reservoirs, and reservoirs cover a large part of not just flood mitigation, but also water management. We may be in a period of increasing rain right now, but a drought wasn't too long ago, all right, Mitch? And we need to make sure that agriculture here in Matagorda County has adequate supplies of water, and agriculture in Missouri County has adequate supplies of water. So, to me, reservoirs and flood mitigation efforts, that's what should be spent.
Okay. Troy?
You've got to spend the money on the experts. We do too much guessing. In Freeport, Texas, we receive all the water from upcountry, from here all the way up. And we have got to engage the experts with the $4.2 billion and fix it correctly. And if we don't, we're going to continue to experience it. We have to get all entities involved in working together and be in agreement with the reservoirs and stop the development without the approvals and the neighborhoods without the approvals before there is a plan that is approved by a certified engineer to stop this type of damage to our residents.
I'm going to ask one more quick question, but audience, this is going to be your time to ask a question. Of course, remember, the kindergarten rules apply to you, so just make sure, be nice. If you want to come, you have the microphone up there, you'll be able to ask a question, and then we're going to have each of you respond accordingly, or unless you have a direct question for a direct candidate, okay? So now's the time to represent Damon if you want to get everybody ready to time. Quick question is, This last session, they increased the Texas teacher pay by $5,000, costing $4 billion to the state. I know education was mentioned earlier. Do you agree with this raise? And if so, why? And if not, what other things would you do to increase this or elevate our school systems? And I think we're starting with Robert.
Yes, I agree that our teachers need to be paid adequately, and that's a small step, what was done in H3. We need to work on getting our teacher pay at a level that we keep good teachers. It has to be an effort locally and an effort from the state. And as again I mentioned, we need to be working on getting that state effort higher and that we bring the local effort down so it's easier on our taxpayers to lower our taxes.
So that's a great question, and our teachers deserve it. So we send to the schools the most precious thing we own, and that's our kids and our grandkids. And we've got to have professionals there that are taking care of those kids. What worries me, and not just with this budget, so we allocated more money for these teachers for a 2-year cycle. And what happens in year 4 and 5 and 6? Why do we just go up and worry about the next 2 years? I want to be able to have legislation or discussions, if nothing else, that talks about 10 years. What's a 10-year plan to get a teacher well paid for? What's a plan to get a bus driver? Because right now our schools are having a horrible time getting bus drivers to take care of our kids. I think the biggest part we talked about is economic development, and that's making sure in the school district at least that the 313 agreement gets passed this session when it sunsets.
Thank you.
Absolutely, they're still underpaid even with the $5,000 increase. Let me tell you what, our teachers are underpaid and overworked, and we have to address the overwork aspect as well. Too much of a burden is being put on our teachers and our students from standardized testing which, by and large, tests above grade level. For example, on a 3rd grade reading assignment. We have to make sure that our testing systems hold kids at a degree of accountability, but measuring growth and not stressing them out, and certainly not cutting funding to schools based off the performance of an 8-year-old on a test where he's stressed out out of his mind. We have to make sure that our teachers are given the support they need, not overworked and not underpaid. And particularly, this needs to be addressed. We have to make sure that we have a broader salary range for our teachers so that we can pay those that stay as teachers longer more. It's one thing to have a high starting salary, but if that's where you plateau, why would you want to stay there? We should have teachers be able to earn up to $100,000 a year. That needs to be our strategy.
Thank you. Troy?
And I believe the question was, do I believe in the $5,000 pay raise? Is that
Yes. There's 2 parts. Do you agree with $5,000 pay raise? What would you do?
Absolutely, and we have to build on that. But I also believe in local control. As as a school board member, a representative that's voting on a school in Bay City, Texas, they don't have a clue to what the needs of a school in Bay City, Texas are. The school board members do. And school board members have got to work with us to see that their teachers get the raises that they need. We have got to continue to build on that. And that's one thing that they did in the last legislature is increase full funding, and that's great, but we got to continue to build upon that. And if we don't, we're going to continue to lose great people. And I talked about it earlier, about how important public schools are in educating our children to take these jobs. So we've got to lean on our industry partners and our local school boards to make sure that we continue to raise that salary and keep our quality people in those public schools.
Thank you.
So I think our school system is definitely in trouble, but I think there's a 3-pronged approach that we can do. And the first one is get rid of the standardized testing. There is no data supporting that standardized testing is a good measure, and certainly not tied to funding, like you said, with an 8-year-old. Second, we need to be driving, so all this money was allocated for school districts, but we need to be driving the dollars to the classroom, not, so right now we're funding from the top down, we need to be funding from the bottom up, basically. And the other important thing is pull the government out of some of these decisions and return control back to a local level. Let the teachers teach kids.
All right, any questions from the audience?
All right, if anybody has any questions, I know you have to have something. Don't be scared. No one is going to judge you. Just come up here in the front. All right, great. Come on up.
Robert, you gonna ask about the train?
I am.
My name is Bob Giesecke. I'm a landowner in Brazoria County. And I just want to ask each of you on the subject, we talked about property taxes and property rights. But another question on property rights related is eminent domain reform. Would you support eminent domain reform? And Cody, you mentioned that the power of the chairman in the legislature. You know, it was a bill, Senator Coulter's had a bill that passed the Senate on a 28-3 vote. It got bottled up in the House, in the chair, in one committee, and that chairman had complete control of that bill. So, eminent domain reform, and specifically, the next time Port Freeport comes up with a scheme to seize land or railroad that's not needed, will you support the landowners, or will you support Port Freeport? Those are my two questions.
Mitch?
Yes, I will support it. I spoke a lot with Senator Cookforce when she introduced that legislation. We certainly support that. I'll tell you a quick story that hurts. Our economic development gentlemen, our economic executive directors here, we've lost billions of dollars in projects because we had landowners that wouldn't play ball. And I support that because it's their land and they need to do. We'll take the loss when it comes to economic development, but a landowner, and I'll kind of go with Cody, it is a God-given right to own the land. When we tried to open the beaches up on the coast, it was their God-given right to drive on those beaches. Well, I think land ownership is the same way. And I say the same thing for the Port of Freeport. I believe that there is a number, there is a price, and an entity and a landowner needs to come to that price. We have Tenaris right now. The land was not for sale. The price was way out of line. They negotiated, they came to a settlement without eminent domain.
Thanks, Mitch. Thank you. Cody?
Sure, I support Senator Lewis Coulter's bill. I would definitely vote for that if I'm elected to the legislature. I believe in eminent domain reform. I believe a property owner, whenever you come up to him to acquire his property, if you try to lowball him, you ought to be punished by the state for it. And that's what Senator Coulter's bill had in it. Now, I also think that every landowner ought to be paid fair market value for any land, and it should only be taken for public use. Public use has to be demonstrated that it is for the benefit of the public. As to Rob's question about the train, the train as proposed was not feasible and therefore was not in the public benefit. If a future proposal is likewise not feasible and not in favor of the public benefit, I would of course oppose it because I oppose all eminent domain that is not for public use. But with that said, I support the Port Freeport. I think they're integral to our economy. They grow it. I'm supportive of them in the sense that if they want to pursue a course of action and it's in the public use, then we can come together. But if it's not, I've got to oppose it.
Troy?
Cody and I see things a lot alike, I guess, because we're so close together down there. But yes, I support eminent domain reform. I support the bill, and I'll vote for the bill. I believe that there should be more transparency on both sides, or on the one side of the table of the landowner. I think that before survey stakes goes up, there should be negotiations and complete understanding of what's going on. I believe that the rail was presented in a bad way from the beginning, and I believe it could have used a lot more planning, but I never believed that it was going to work. As far as the Port of Freeport, I support the Port of Freeport 100%, especially where I live in the city of Freeport, and it creates many jobs. It creates jobs for people that didn't have a job before that's now making $25 an hour, and I salute them for that. But I would definitely support eminent domain reform.
So yes, we absolutely need reform, because what we see is we have a very powerful government and very powerful businesses, and then your 80-year-old grandfather trying to protect their property. That's not a fair matchup. So we absolutely need better representation for private property owners. I think that there should be a much heavier burden of proof on the government to be able to enact eminent domain. And I'm always going to come down on the side of the taxpayer and the private property owners.
Yes, I'm very much in favor of eminent domain reform. It should be a last resort, and it should be a system that is fair, where a lowball bid shouldn't be thrown out there because they know the property owner can't afford to take it to court. It should be very much reformed, and I do support the Port of Freeport and any project that can be proven in the best interest of the public. Then we have to get in support on that, but if eminent domain should be the last resort.
Just for the record, I oppose all eminent domain. I think we have the right to, God-given right to property, and that means no one can take it without your permission. But that's just me. Who else? Who else? Come on up. Don't be scared. I'm not a graceful man.
That was graceful. I thought that was something.
Oh, really? The boot up in there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Bobby Head, Bay City. I'm going to completely change the subject here. Y'all might not want to hear this, but what this is my experience. First off, I'm going to tell you, I am not a gambler. I'm not big on gambling, but I had a nightclub in Bossier City, Louisiana, where I dealt with the casinos there on a continuing basis, and we did a lot of business with them. Became real good friends with a guy named Jack Binion, who owned the Horseshoe Casino. He sold out to Harris back years ago. But we were talking, and I kept saying, look at these cars in the parking lot. Look at these cars in the parking lot. 90% of them are Texas. And I told him, I said, you know, we need to put some pass casino gambling in Texas. Blame it on the Baptist, the Catholic, or whatever. That's not true. He told me, Bobby, we spend over, my little casino group alone spends over $1 million a year on lobbyists to keep gambling out of Texas. Now look at where we're at. Every state surrounding the state of Texas has casino gambling now. Not Texas, but every state surrounding Texas. If you leave Texas, Dallas, and you go to Oklahoma City, you cross the Red River over there, and you go to the Windstar Casino. It's in the town of Thackerville, Oklahoma. Population 437 people. How big is the Windstar Casino? Do y'all have any idea? Do you know that the Windstar Casino in Thackerville, Oklahoma is the largest casino in the world? Bigger than all of them in Vegas. Bigger than all of them. That's the largest casino in the world because of Texas. Because that's where everybody goes to gamble. And if you go to Vegas, the biggest state people go to gamble in Vegas is California, because it's across the border. Texas is number 2. More people go from Texas. What I'm saying is how much tax revenue for our children's schools and everything else are we missing out on by not having casino gambling here in Texas? Everybody from Texas goes there.
Is that your question, sir?
Yes.
Okay, there you go. All right, I think, we'll try to keep the question to
So is part of your answer, part of your question, do they support legalizing casino gambling? Is that part of your question too? We'll assume it is. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I got you 3 more minutes. All right. How much we would benefit from that, I don't know. That's not been demonstrated to me. I would need to see some serious hard numbers, and I would need to see what is the added regulatory burden that's going to come with the state. Were there other issues that come from that? I'll tell you what, I am not what I would consider open to casino gambling. I'm hostile to it. I'll be frank with you right now. I'm a Baptist, I'm a conservative, and I don't gamble. So I'm opposed to it, not in totem, but I have some hostility to it. I would need to see some really, really strong numbers on that. And I would very much doubt that those numbers would justify it. I would be very, very surprised if they did. I don't see that happening.
I'm not going to say that I've never been to Vegas. I'm not going to say that I've never been to Louisiana, but I work too hard for my money to gamble it. I would too, the same, would have to see the pros and the cons from the income from gambling from the damage that it would do to the individuals that lose everything gambling. Not only from a financial standpoint, but from drug standpoint, prostitution standpoint, and everything else that goes with gambling. And I know that there's another side of it, we can debate this all day long, but I would just have to see some hard numbers and some true benefits to the schools and the people in the state of Texas to pass something like, or to vote to pass something like that. But I certainly agree with you. I agree with the Texas plates, and I've thought long and hard about it, but I would have to really see some facts.
I think, of course, with any major endeavor and cultural change like that, we absolutely need data. We need lots and lots of data. I wanted to address something that he said about everywhere around Texas has gambling. One thing I've learned in this process is you always want to ask why. Why don't we have constitutional carry? Why don't we have casinos? Those are always the questions that come to my mind. And I think generally you can follow the money. So I think that is a voter issue, and I think it is something that should, after much research, be given to the voters. I'm all about less government involvement in our lives. I don't need the government to tell me what I can and can't spend my money on. So I absolutely think that is a voter issue.
Yes, I agree with the others here as far as the need to, the data and the study, but it is a constitutional issue and it would require a constitutional amendment to go before the voters, and that would require the legislature to pass a constitutional amendment ballot measure. And I would hope that the legislature would consider carefully before passing such a measure. I know I would look at the language very carefully and with all the data, et cetera, that they all mentioned available.
You know what I think? I think the devil's in the details. How many of you thought that your lottery tickets went to education? So when you start opening up this can of worms, and I was in the halls and listening to, there was a proposal years ago that if, and I won't name names, but if there were 7 casinos allowed and limited to 7 in the state of Texas, this group would promise the state of Texas $1 billion. $1 billion a year, and that was years ago. So I will tell you, I agree with the citizens voting on it, but more importantly, we thought the lottery money was going to education, and so, Bobby, you talked about that, what could happen to education. I don't know, but they fooled me once, but aren't going to fool me again. And so the devil's going to be in the detail, and we want to make sure that we're doing it right and making sure that the public is okay with it. But I worry terribly about the consequences.
I know.
All right, anybody else? Just for the record, I do know that $4 billion, I don't remember if it's annually or biannually, from the lottery, approximately does go into education. But that's only about, what, 8%, 7%? Yeah.
My name's Mike, and I have a huge concern that rolls back to something y'all said, that $4.2 billion of flood relief. I have never heard that amount of money, ever, because I'm in the marine construction industry. I have people asking me all the time, what can we do to prevent this? My answer is to build your bulkhead higher. But on top of that, I need the GLO and Corps of Engineers to work along with that, and they are so hard to reach out to. They see dollar figures versus the people in our community. So what can we do to make a flood preventative measure versus a flood fund, relief fund? That's what we need to know in our area.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Mike, you're 100% right. And as a developer, we just developed a restaurant on the Old Brazos River in Freeport. And I am about a year, almost going on 2 years, on a permit for a dock from the GLO. That is unacceptable. We have got to find a way to get these agencies to change their ways. And someone mentioned it, I think Rhonda mentioned it earlier, that we work for y'all. when you call these agencies, it's like they are in control. I mean, not to take away my time too much, but you go to the driver's license office and you wait in line for 4 hours and they tell you that they're closed after you've been there for 4 hours. That's unacceptable. And it's the same thing with the GLO, and it goes with the federal, and the federal government as well, which we can't control. But I'm with you 100%, and I will communicate with those agencies, and I will work with those agencies to find a way to streamline, to get the permits done, and to get you guys the things that you need to get your job done.
So earlier we talked about cutting spending, and I think that's something that we need to really look at when we talk about these different agencies that supposedly work for us. We pay them through taxpayer money. We need to get their attention and remind them who they work for. If they're not doing their job and they're not accessible and allowing you to do your job on the ground with the people who are flooded, there's a solution to that. We have a capitalistic society, and free market is usually the answer to those kinds of problems. And we need absolutely more transparency, but we have to demand that. They're not going to just offer up transparency. And that's something that we as the voters have got to stay on top of, and we have to demand that transparency so people who are doing the hard work have the tools and the money that they need.
Thank you. Robert?
The General Land Office, GLO, is presided over by a statewide elected official. Having that conversation, and if that elected official is not doing that job for us, as Ron said, accountability, we need to get a new official doing that job for us, quite frankly. The Corps of Engineers, that's a federal issue, and that would be working with our congressman and see how we can work there. But I'm with you, I understand the frustration, and all we can do is have those conversations and demand accountability.
Thank you.
So the 4.2 billion, it's gone to the GLO. The answer is get your local elected officials to apply for that money. So it's kind of a grant system, and so you're going and you're asking for those dollars to come down for this project. So to answer your question absolutely directly, is get with your elected officials, get with officials that can request that money. I think flood mitigation, I think it was Troy's right. Everything comes down to us. Fort Bend all the way down. Wharton, here it comes. And so we've got to be able to create very smart, very wise decisions, whether it's water retention. I love the water retention after going through a 4-year drought. I love the water retention idea. But we've got to get, the way we get those monies is through our elected officials. You go and you talk to them and say, here's 4.2, let's apply. Matagorda County is still getting Ike money. The commissioner is still getting Ike money to take care of his roads. And it takes a long time. And it's tough. You've got it, your elected officials have to go battle.
Thank you. Go.
Two things, I agree with what's been said. Number one, well, this is a perfect example why we shouldn't expand the scope of government, because look at how good a job it does. So that's why I'm all for limited government. Specifically to your question, a legislature has 2 jobs. 1, go to Austin and legislate. 2, more importantly, and more times of the year, fight for you. I'm the conduit through which you're going to be able to interact with state agencies as an elected official, as your legislator. I pick up the phone, I make those phone calls day in and day out, I harass them, I get it done. That's the way it works. That's how I've done it on Angleton City Council. If a resident in Angleton has any concern, they can pick up the phone and call me day in and day out. If I've got to get on to somebody, I get on to somebody. If I've got to apply pressure, I apply pressure. If I've got to threaten to fire somebody, I got to threaten to fire somebody. We get it done because customer service is what it should be about. It should be about you. And I think that's critical for your legislature to deliver those results for you.
Thank you. Okay, we have 2 more people, is that right? They want to ask?
Make this quick.
Yeah, okay, so give me the quick question. And guys, I'm gonna cut you down to 30 seconds.
Okay.
So, 30 seconds so we get through, so be quick.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Gutierrez. Thank you for your comments on healthcare so far. But I do have a question. As you know, Texas ranks dead last in access to healthcare, affordability, and healthcare outcomes. We are also one of the most restricted states in the country when it comes to regulation of various healthcare providers, including nurse practitioners. Do you support removing these regulatory barriers to nurse practitioners and other healthcare practitioners?
I start this?
I think Ron.
Is that right?
So, yes, in so many other states, nurse practitioners have more freedom to practice. And I think what we're having here, especially in more rural areas like Matagorda County, is it's very difficult to lure these physicians down to these rural areas. And so there's a lot of lack of health care. And so I absolutely think nurse practitioners who are part of our communities are a huge part of the solution. And I'm going to tell you something, they are phenomenal providers. And I'm going to take that one step further. The fact that our federal government is in any way involved in our health care is wrong. They have zero business in our health care.
Thank you. Thank you. Robin?
What I'm going to do, like I said I was going to do, on those subjects that I'm not the expert, I will refer to the expert and get advice from the expert. I agree with Ron completely, but I would talk to someone who knew the subject, and that's the road I would take, absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely, that's exactly what I'm visiting with our school administrators right now, our hospital administrators right now, especially in the rural areas. We do. I go see a nurse when I don't remember the last time I went to an actual doctor, but I do. I go to it. I do support it. I've supported the legislation that I've read previously. I don't know why it didn't pass. I'm sure there was a bureaucratic mess up, but yes, I agree with that. We need it here in rural Texas.
Full practice authority, absolutely.
Cody?
I agree 100%. I think other things you can do, increasing telemedicine, providing alternatives in order for people in rural areas to get access to all kinds of providers. We need to have the market providing access to these individuals and not have government regulations alter the free market like they're doing, because there are people that are willing to provide this service. NPs, good NPs, we ought to let them do it. And also, I support urgent cares. Is that there's a number of things that we can do to address rising healthcare costs, but of course, I support 100% allowing NPs full practice.
I support it 100%. I believe keeping government out of healthcare is very smart. I was visiting with my neurologist the other day about rural areas, and I believe in the internet treatment where they can actually treat someone over the internet through video from Houston, and I believe that's going to reduce the cost of healthcare as well. So that's something that I would definitely support and look into.
Okay. We had a last question. 30 seconds again. I'll remind you guys again. 30 seconds.
Okay, so very quickly, apparently, in 30 seconds, I've served in city council and as mayor pro tem, and so I've worked with a lot of people on the stage, and I would really like to hear about your experience, what you have personally already done. I don't want campaign promises. That's a waste of my time because most of them don't come through. I want to know what you're already doing, what you've already done to make District 22 better, and what you're going to do to scale it up. The one thing, you can only pick one thing since you have 30 seconds, that you have done and that you're going to continue to do for the people who have voted for you and put you in office, or for the people who support you for the office that you see.
It's Robin.
Okay. Well, what I have done is serve the citizens of Brazoria County for 35 years in the Brazoria County Tax Office. I have worked on legislation since the mid-90s. I have worked diligently on the passage of SB2 this last session to make it workable for local government and for taxpayers in order for both to be able to make the system work. And I'm ready to continue that next level on that language.
I worked very diligently with both the Palacios mayor and the Bay City mayor. In fact, I probably spend more time with the Bay City mayor lately than I have my wife. But my wife was on council for 8 years. I supported her as mayor pro tem 2 years. We didn't always agree, and tense was in the house sometimes, but we always supported her. I think right now, Bay City, we've got a 5-0 council, we've got a great mayor, we've got a great team moving it forward. I look forward to working with the city managers and the mayors in Brazoria County.
I've been on Angleton City Council for 4 years. So I ran in 2016 as a three-part pledge. 1, I will bring public prayer to meetings. 2, vote to lower the property tax rate. 3, promote economic development. I voted to bring public prayer to our meetings. We have public prayer to this day, right now. Number 2, I voted to lower the property tax rate 3 times. I'm the only one on this stage that's ever done that. Number 3, I have promoted economic development. Look at all the the businesses that are coming to Angleton. Ultimately, I'm most proud of the fact that when a constituent calls me any day or night, I'm on it, I'm fast moving, and I want to continue that if I'm elected to the state legislature.
I've raised 6 successful kids that I know that are going to be an asset to District 25. That's what I'm most proud of. I've recently been the mayor of the city of Freeport, where I personally uncovered over $300,000 of theft, and we got a conviction, and we got a sentence today to 10 years in prison. I've served on the school board. I have developed over $10 million in development in the city of Freeport since 2013. I've added $10 million in value to the city of Freeport since 2013. Thank you very much.
So one of the things that I've done serving as a nurse is I've kept part of HD 25 people alive. So that's one of the things, and one of the skills that I intend to take with me to Austin is the ability to listen and to advocate. And those are 2 things that I do every single day. I literally make life and death decisions based on those 2 things. And that is what a representative should do, is listen and advocate and fight.
I think we're out of time for questions, except for mine, because we're going to give it a real fast answer. Okay, so I have talked to representatives about, we were talking about property taxes earlier, and we were talking about how could we return private property rights to people, because I think Doc rightly pointed out, we don't really own property in the state of Texas, because if you pay rent to somebody, and if you don't pay rent, they kick you out of your house, guess what? It's not yours, right? So one of the things that I came up with, and I had some legislators that were open to the idea, but they never really got around to it, was to provide, right now in the law, there are exemptions to who can seize your homestead. So like if you have a loan with something else and someone sues you, they can't take your homestead. Like they can't come and kick you out of your home for it. But there's 3 exceptions in the law. And one of those exceptions is taxes, property taxes. Would you support a bill that for homesteads only, and maybe just for elderly people or things like that, would prevent taxing authorities, local taxing authorities, from kicking those people out of their homes? They would still have a claim, they would still be able to get their tax money eventually, but it would prevent them, the families and elderly, it would prevent them from getting kicked out of their home. And they would be able to pursue it in other ways, the same ways that if you don't pay your car payment or you don't pay your whatever other personal loans you have, they can still pursue that money. But it would prevent them from being homeless. Would you support that?
I'm gonna give you 30, we're way over time, and you're the one that's in the allergy. So
I know.
You went
Give them 15 seconds.
But personal privilege there, Damon. You went personal privilege on me. 15 seconds, and it was gonna end right because Damon. So 15 seconds, Cody, go ahead.
Over 65, absolutely. I think, don't misquote me, but I think that is already the law. For over 65, for school taxes, that you can freeze those and then you can have them paid from your estate. But absolutely, over 65, sure.
Okay, Troy?
Absolutely, over 65, I think that's worse than eminent domain.
Okay, Rhonda?
Absolutely support that bill.
It's already in the law for over 65 and disabled to be able to defer their taxes as long as they live and own that property as their homestead.
Okay.
I'm willing, I agree with the law, and I agree with 65, that seems to be a good number, but, so what you're talking about more is like a lien on the property. But so, I would love to know more about the direction.
So
and
not just for
I can't support that across the board.
Not just for elderly. How about for moms and dads that are struggling and lost their job? But is it right for the state of Texas to kick them out of their home?
They be breaking the rules.
I tell you, I got to pull you out here. Doc, hit the door, hit the trap door. All right, hit the trap door.
Don't give me
And you'll have some sidebar. Look, he's cooking away about 30 seconds of your closing remarks. You got 30 seconds, close remarks. You can blame him for it and throw him things. But by the way, and then we'll be done for the night. It's late, people got things to do on a Friday night. So 30 seconds, Mitch, you go ahead and we'll work our way back.
Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for hanging in here with us. You've heard some great opinions and some great stories. I appreciate each and every one of you for being here. Thanks again to the Republican Party Matagorda County for doing this. Thanks to those, give yourselves a hand. Thanks for the committee that put this together. I am running to be your state rep. I want to put an office here that filled with great staff members that cuts the red tape and fixes your situation, whatever it may be. I appreciate your support.
Robert?
Thank you, Matagorda GOP, for putting on this event. I just want to say, I've said it a while ago, don't underestimate me. I am a servant, but I am a servant who has knowledge and experience that can get things done, that can work hard for you. That is my only job, will be state representative. I have nothing to gain by running for this office other than my love for serving this district and the citizens of Texas.
Thank you.
The bottom line is this. I was the only candidate in this race that cared enough about any of these issues to step up when it was going to be hard, when I was faced with money, when I was faced with intimidation and power. So I just want you to think, when you're in that ballot box, who do you want to send to represent you? I will be there to fight, and I don't back down. Thank you for your help.
All I'm asking is for you to send a well-rounded candidate to Austin. I've been in the industry. I'm a cattle raiser. I'm a law enforcement officer. I'm a developer. I've opened restaurants. I've had a real estate license. I've owned insurance agencies. I've been in the hot shot business. My wife and I have owned daycares. If you're in the audience, I get it. I've been there. I know what it means to have mandates and have regulations. I will represent you the way you need to be represented, and I will listen and understand what you need, what your voice, your voice and how it needs to be taken to Austin. Thank you.
Elections are to be about record, values, and platform. I believe I've got the most experience of anybody on this stage making decisions that impact day-to-day lives of the people in my community. I didn't wait for this election to step up and serve. I've been serving for years in my community. And I am passionate about this role. I am passionate about life, the sanctity of human life. If you vote for me, know this. I'm pro-life, I'm pro-term limits, and I'm pro-taxpayer. And if I have to pick between the government or your God-given rights, you bet I'm going to go for your God-given rights. So vote Vasut, March 3rd. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, Scott did an amazing job. Thank you so much. Listen to his radio show. This guy, he's a warrior. He's a warrior for everybody here in this room. Thank you guys so much for what you've done and your sacrifices and your family sacrifices that aren't here on that stage. So thank you. Chip, outstanding job running the county. Damon, you're in timeout. We're going to have a conversation after this. Y'all, except for the Baptists, should go have a drink on Damon. God bless.
If the candidates would please go to their tables, if you have any follow-up questions, you'll be able to get to them there.